Yo, what up YouTube? My name's Mike. I go by DJ Access, and today I'm bringing you my first ever scratch tutorial.
Oh yeah!
Alright everybody, welcome to my channel where I conduct tutorials, perform routines, and discuss DJ related topics. If you find this video helpful or interesting, hit that like button, and please consider subscribing if you want to learn the art and business of mixing music alongside me. I finally got the studio ready to rock, and it's time for my first ever scratch tutorial. So instead of showing you guys the techniques, because there's DJs who do the techniques a lot better than I am, I would call myself an intermediate scratcher. I know my way around, and I'm able to scratch live, which is a big thing. However, if you're looking for the techniques on how to learn scratches, there are DJs like DJ Angelo, DJ Shorty, and DJ Rob Shift who all have dedicated channels to learning the techniques. What I want to talk to you about today is the progression of learning a scratch. And I think that's going to help a lot because as I get more experienced as a DJ, I find myself going back to relearn scratches that I thought I had. So I want to give you guys an idea of the steps that it takes to learn a scratch from the start that I wish I would have had as a beginner DJ. All right, you guys know I love structure, so we're gonna separate this video into what I consider the 8 steps to learning a scratch. And they are selecting a scratch to learn, breaking down the scratch, enhancing your muscle memory, slowing it down, using a scratch trainer, finding your expression, practicing on camera, and finally mastery. As is customary, we're gonna start with step 1, which is selecting a scratch to learn. Now, if you're a beginner scratcher and this is the first time that you're like touching a turntable or trying scratching, it's going to be really easy. You're going to do the baby scratch, which sounds like this. If you have a good handle on the baby scratch and maybe you're trying to figure out what's the next thing to learn, I might suggest cuts or chops, which sound like this. From there are a number of videos that you can watch or DJ routines that you can look at and kind of analyze what they're doing and then find the scratch you want to learn. This isn't going to talk about the technical aspect of the scratch. It's going to talk about the progression of how to learn it. So again, you want to select a scratch to learn and focus on because in my opinion, that's going to be the fastest way to learn so you get that muscle memory. So once you've selected a scratch to learn, you're going to go to one of the YouTube channels that I mentioned or find a turntablism mentor and actually figure out how to do the movements with your hands. And that might be some coaching audibly. That might be actually just having someone like move your hand the way that it needs to move in order to perform the scratch, depending on the difficulty. But you really want to just understand what is making the sound. Is it a fast movement? Is it a slow movement? Is it mostly fader based? Is it mostly record based? You want to understand how to do the scratch. And then that's not going to take you too long, so you can move on to step 3, which is going to take you a very long time, and that's learning the muscle memory. So muscle memory is all about training and consistency. It's just like any other artistic ability or sport or anything that you want to learn. You want to have repetition. So in the beginning, it might sound as you're starting to learn it, but then as you spend a ton of time, it'll start to sound more consistent. And if you really want to test yourself, what you can do is actually sing the scratch to yourself. So I might go boo whip, boo whip, boo whip, boo whip, boo whip, boo whip, boo whip. And that's how you know that you have the mind-muscle connection between what you're trying to play and what's actually coming out on the record. So again, this is the part that most people fail on. If you feel stressed out, like you're never going to get it, you're almost on the other side of that hill because that means you're spending a ton of time. If you're not frustrated, you're not spending a ton of time on it. So once you start feeling frustrated and that you feel like you're never going to get it, push through that, and that's where you're going to start to really understand how the scratch goes and start to be able to use it in your routines and such. One more tip about the muscle memory step of this progression. you want to find out where you're most comfortable scratching. Now, this could depend on what type of DJ you are. If you're a hip-hop DJ, maybe you're comfortable from, say, 60 to 100. If you're an open format DJ, maybe it's 70 to 128. If you are a house DJ, maybe it's 120 to 128. Doesn't really matter so much, but you want to find out where you're comfortable scratching, because you always want to have a home base so that if you're learning new scratches, you know, okay, I'm going to go to 95 beats per minute, which is where I'm comfortable scratching, and then I'm going to learn it there. And then I can lead that to the next step, which is, of course, to slow it down. So if you're hip-hop DJ, slowing it down might be to 60 BPMs. If you're open format like me, that might be 70. If you're a house, that might be 120. But you want to slow it down, because actually most scratches are more difficult when they're slowed down, and that'll actually really make you understand whether your hand has a good grasp on the scratch that you're learning. So far, we've developed our muscle memory at our own comfortable pace. We've then slowed it down so we can really get an understanding of the hand movements and how they need to go. And then now it's time to speed it up. And the way I like to do that is with the scratch trainer, and I'll link the one that I've created below and the one that you'll see later on in this video. My scratch trainer starts at 70 beats per minute and moves all the way up to 130 and then all the way back down, giving me enough time to kind of figure out the scratch at each interval of BPMs. So it'll start at 70, do 4 bars, 80, 4 bars, 90, back up to 130, and then back down to 70. And it takes about 2 to 2.5 minutes, and you can actually create your own scratch trainer. And if you want to learn how to do that, leave me a comment below, and I will definitely figure out a video that should be a really easy one for me to make, especially for those of you who have Ableton. So I want to show you what that looks like right now. One more bonus tip about using a scratch trainer: if you want to learn quickly, you'll want to do what like I did and do the same pattern over and over again. That's going to train your muscles the fastest way. However, that can be tedious and boring at times, and it may not make you want to practice, and DJing should always be fun. So if you're finding it tedious and boring, freestyle it up. You can mix up the speeds. If you're doing a scratch that requires a fader hand, you can mix up how how long you leave the fader open and kind of cut it off at different intervals, but the way you practice should be fun. And if you're finding that it's not fun, maybe freestyle it. And if you're really trying to hone a scratch, maybe you have a battle coming up and you really need to figure this out, that's where you really want to focus and do the same thing over and over again. But ultimately, the best thing you can do is practice. The more time you spend on these scratches, the better you will get, I promise. So if you've gotten to the point where you're using a scratch trainer and you're feeling really good about how you're doing, you've been spending hours, days, months on the specific scratch that you want to learn, and you're feeling really good about it, and you can go up and down maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a day using a scratch trainer, that's a great point to get to. And I would get to that point back when I was learning scratches and I think, oh, I'm done. Now I can kind of move along and go on to new scratches. And I would say that that was a mistake. And now as an 11-year vet as of 2018, I find myself going back to relearn scratches because of the next step, which is expression. So not all the scratches sound great at all BPMs with all different types of music. So what you have to learn to do is find different ways to perform the scratch so that they fit with the type of music that you're playing. And I'll try and give you a little bit of example. I will be honest, I'm not the best at expressing the scratch. If I can, I'll try and get DJ Bombay in here to really show you what I'm talking about. But the best way for me to do this is on a one-click flare. So a one-click flare sounds like this. And I'll actually turn off. And if I want to add some expression to it, I can make it sound like this. So a little bit different, and that might sound better in a funkier track, where this might, the straight away might sound better in a hip hop track. So again, the expression part of the track is just finding different ways to perform the same movements, maybe make it funkier, maybe make it more smooth, make it more military. You'll find when people are analyzing other people's scratch, they might say, oh yeah, those cuts sound really clean, or those cuts sound really militaristic, or those cuts sound really funky. And that's talking about the different expression of the scratch. So once you get really comfortable doing the same thing over and over with the scratch trainer, that's where you can start to really figure out how you want your scratches to sound and start to sound and start to kind of develop like a turntablism profile, if you will. The next step in the process is practicing your cuts on camera, which is what I'm doing right now. You can see that once I have a camera on me, or if I'm in front of a crowd, I can still make mistakes because I have not mastered the scratch yet. And especially if I'm concentrating on a very difficult scratch, you might see little things. My body language might shift, or my facial expressions might go into concentration mode. Every DJ has like a different thing that they do when they're really concentrating on a scratch. If you go back and watch Scratch Bastard or my old videos, you can kind of see little things that we do, little ticks that come up when we're really concentrating on a scratch. So practicing on camera will let you identify what you're doing and when. It'll let you know that, hey, maybe I need to work on the scratch a little bit more so it becomes second nature, because once the scratch is second nature, that's where you can concentrate on your other body language. So maybe you want to go into like battle mode, or maybe you want to look really relaxed while you scratch. That's all, again, coming out and starting to work on your turntablism profile and how you perform. Maybe it's at different events you do different movements or different facial expressions. But again, without mastery of the scratch, then you'll really start messing up the scratch if you're not concentrating on your hand movements and you're only concentrating on what your face or body language looks like. And as we approach the end of the video, you hear me saying it, mastery of the scratch. And what does mastery mean? Well, mastery means you have figured out the scratch, you can do it in your sleep, and you own the scratch. And I think a DJ like Qbert would say that you can never master a scratch. There's always different ways you can express the scratch. And if you have mastered it, you can always add different combos onto it. So mastery is the last step because it leaves the door open to however however deep you want to take it. So for instance, a DJ friend of mine in Columbus here, Matt Magic, is known for his chirps. He has truly mastered. He can do it whenever he needs to, drunk, sober, in his sleep, at a party, in front of people, doesn't matter. He has his chirps down and makes them sound dope. So I would say he's mastered the chirps, but I bet you if I ask him, he would say he hasn't mastered them yet, and there's still a lot of work that he could do. So again, mastery is where you dig deep and you figure out how you want to sound, develop that turntablism profile, and go as deep as you want into that scratch before you decide to learn a new one or add a combo onto that scratch on top of it. So hopefully that you've made it to the end of the 8 steps. You guys feel motivated and feel like, yes, you can learn how to scratch, or you can learn a new scratch and use this process to actually hone and maybe learn it a little bit faster, or maybe push a little bit farther than you had before with learning your scratches. I do want to say that for those of you who are new scratchers, I want to give you a way to apply what I'm teaching you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the baby scratch on this side, and it's really helpful to kind of make a folder of songs that you scratch with. So that way, when you come down to practice, you already have them there. Maybe every week it's your goal to add a new song to that folder. But it'll really help that once you get to like the performance and someone says, oh, you scratched, let me see that. You can go to that folder and you're already practiced on it and you already know how to get there quickly. Or maybe that's something that you set a goal for yourself, that I want to scratch once in every gig that I do. So I want to give you, if everyone has the single of Hot in here, you guys should know this. If you're an open format DJ, you've played this a million times, but there's a sample right before the song kicks in. Oh. And you can use that as a little scratch sound. Oh. Oh. And it's really great because right after that sound comes the hit, right? So, and typically when you drop that, if you do it right, the crowd, if you're rocking the crowd and you're kind of maybe coming from a song, which I'll talk about in a second, typically the crowd will give you a nice little reaction that, oh, this guy can scratch. Even if you only know the baby scratch, even if that's the only thing that you do, that's one way to connect with your audience and maybe get a little bit of reputation from the DJs or the music aficionados that are listening to you. So you're wondering, well, how do I mix it in? So I'm going to give you the other track that every open format DJ plays, including myself, and that's going to be Yeah by Usher. So you got that coming. So that's the end of the chorus. And I'm just going to use the baby scratch and drop it in. And that sounds really, really nice. It cuts it off. You kind of tease it a little bit. You drop it. And then typically after you drop that oh and the beat kicks in, the crowd will rock with you like, oh, and you can feel really good about what you just did. And then again, you'll get bored of doing that. And then you'll add more songs into your folder and you just keep growing from there, and you'll add more routines. And the sky's the limit with turntablism. You'll never figure it all out. There's so many different avenues that you can take, and scratching is just one. So I really hope that these tips helped with your journey into turntablism. The other tip that I can give everyone is just to dedicate 20 minutes a day to whatever turntablism or any kind of practice you want to learn. If it is scratching that you want to learn, dedicate 20 minutes a day. You can, do a warm-up, 5 minutes with your right hand, 5 minutes with your left hand, on a track that's like one of your favorite to scratch to, or maybe it's at a good pace for you. Then on your right hand, you do the scratch trainer once, left hand scratch trainer once, go back to right, go back to left. And after that, that should be about 20 minutes. And, if you're really passionate about DJing, 20 minutes will fly by and you'll end up practicing for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, especially if you're starting to get it. Once you get over that hump of man, I'm never going to learn this. Once you get over that hump, it makes it really easy to practice because you're actually getting it, and you'll understand that once you spend the time to learn the scratches, that you can really learn anything as long as you dedicate the time to it. 20 minutes a day is what I recommend. Again, that usually ends up being an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much time you have and how passionate you are about your craft. that's going to conclude my first ever Scratch tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you found what I did helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing if you want to see more tutorials of performances or see me discuss DJ related topics. The next video I'll be talking about will be a finger drumming video, and the reason it'll be a finger drumming video is because I found a question in the comments asking me to make one. So again, if there's something that you want to learn DJ wise, something that you've seen me do in past videos, let me know. Check out my other maybe this will help series if you're a beginner DJ, if you're new to this channel. There's some great information there, and now that I got this whole studio set up the way I want it to, I'll be pushing out content as much as I can. So the more you guys give me, the more motivated I can be to keep on making this content for you, just letting me know that you appreciate this stuff and that it's helping you out. So peace and practice, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.